right, and we are live. What is going on, my specialists? SPC here. And finally, for what has been forever, it has been 2 years in the making. Welcome back, finally, to the Talkalorian Live. As you guys see, I have got my co-host over here. We have got Andy King back once again.
Thank you, Austin, and happy to be back, especially to talk Star Wars.
Yeah, man, 2 years. It's been 2 years since the last time we have done the Talkalorian Live.
Yeah, man. I think it's well deserved, right? Like just waiting for the Mandalorian to come out, even though there's been so much Star Wars media, it just still feels like the Mandalorian has a special place for me, at least.
Yes, yeah. I mean, it's honestly, it's a show that I think really did change and kind of help Star Wars quite a bit. Because you and I, we joke about it all the time. You know, you're not the biggest fan of the sequels, and I mean, obviously, that's a big criticism a lot of people have about Disney as Star Wars is, the way they handled that. But to me, obviously, Mandalorian it's got a following, like.
Mm-hmm.
For a lot of people, besides like Rogue One, it's probably the best thing that Disney has put out since they took over back in 2012.
I mean, like you said it yourself, not the biggest Star Wars fan, but I grew up watching, the original Star Wars movies and space westerns like Firefly and Cowboy Bebop. So seeing more of that space westernish feel in the Star Wars universe, seeing that in The Mandalorian is awesome. Which is part of why I love it so much.
Yeah, I mean, since last time we did this, at least, we've gotten so much different, Star Wars media, Obviously, we got the show that we are currently talking about, the Book of Boba Fett. We got Star Wars Visions, The Bad Batch. Can't think of anything else at the top of my head. Those are just the big ones. Obi-Wan, Andor.
Let's see, Obi-Wan, Andor, like you said, Book of Boba, Boba Fett. Yep. Yeah, I can't think of anything, or at least anything major. Those were you've had to tie-in media come out, like they're Mandalorian comics, but they're kind of just adaptations of the episode. So nothing really shocking that's come out that contributes to the main Star Wars lore or universe.
Yeah, I could agree with that at least. And guys, before we actually fully get into the topic, there is one more thing I wanted to bring up. So if you guys do remember, the last time we did this, we had ourselves a third co-host. We had our friend Ren from the Ren Geekness channel. Unfortunately, due to scheduling issues and, just bigger things going on in his life, he unfortunately will not be able to join us this season for the Talkalorian Live. But regardless, Ren, you're always with us, man. You're always going to be a part of this, especially, with me and Andy, because we geeked out a lot about stuff. Amen. Hopefully you get to come back soon, but we are hoping to get at least a different co-host to come on. If not, try and maybe get a guest on each and every single week. Haven't really worked everything out. Everything just kind of happened pretty fast already. And I mean, I've just been wanting to do this for a while because, especially talking about Book of Boba Fett, especially because the show has already been out for well over a year already.
Right.
Well, we got Star Wars Sith. We got him here in the chat. Hello there.
What's up, Star Wars Sith? So I think that's what I want to tear into, right? Is the fact that it feels like we're a little. This is going to sound bad, right? But I think that I'm going to start by comparing like the current state of Star Wars in Disney to like the current state of, let's say, phase 4 of the MCU, which is I've been waiting for Mandalorian season 3, but I feel like we've had so much Star Wars content come out. It's either A, been kind of hard to keep up with, or B, hard to like really enjoy and invest yourself.
I mean, I can agree with that. Like, I'm surprised. Like I fell behind watching the show The Bad Batch. I didn't watch it till
Hmm.
about a year after it came out. I finished it here. I want to say like 2 or 3 months ago. I
Right.
enjoyed it, and I enjoyed it enough. It's a fun enough Star Wars story, I guess we can say. Uh, Also, what was the other? Oh, Visions. I actually
Yeah.
Visions really surprised me with how much I actually liked that because
Hmm.
I figured that'd be the one you wanted to jump on because it's a whole bunch of different like Japanese studios. So
Yeah.
like the
And I mean, I
animation,
think that's
phenomenal.
yeah. And like, I mean, I even saw there were some studios like Studio Trigger that were involved in it. And I was like, wow, that's really audacious, I guess is the word. That's really awesome. But like it's kind of I don't want to say it's like a one trick pony, but it's kind of like Marvel doing What If. It's like anthological and it's fun. But I know it's kind of like seeing if lightning can strike twice with that.
Yeah, I mean, again, I enjoyed the shows enough from what we have gotten since the Mandalorian ended back in 2020. And I mean, obviously, a lot of people have kind of, I think, the same. I don't know what the word I want to use is sentiment. I guess we had when we watched that. I mean, again, that last episode, I bawled my absolute eyes out. The whole
Mm-hmm.
like 10 minutes of the show.
Yeah, I
We
mean, and
my favorite Star Wars content.
and I mean, and I'm honestly hoping that they can like recapture that, right? Because it wasn't just about watching a bunch of action. I feel like there was a lot more kind of action focused story in the first season, but then we got. I mean, it was still emotional at parts, but we got to really tear into the emotions in season two. So I'm
Yeah,
hoping that they deliver on that, they build on that in season three. But I mean, just from the just from the initial trailer, it looks like they know what they're doing, or it looks like they know what they want to do.
well, because John Favreau, he's come out here the last like couple days and he's made some announcements. Apparently, we are supposed to get something very similar this season, like we did with Luke in the last season. So supposedly there's
Mhm.
something big happening again this season. What was the other one? Apparently, he's already got most, if not all, of season 4 already written out, ready to go.
Oh wow,
Trying to, yeah, I'm trying to think of what there was
that's
another. Oh,
I did not know
apparently
that. That's awesome.
right, and apparently too, he has the show's not even apparently halfway done in his eyes. So if he's already got season 4 like written. Like, are we going 8 seasons? Are we going 10 seasons? Like, how far are we going to go into this adventure with the Mandalorian and whoever else we end up going along with? Whether Grogu's going to be around the entire time, whether or not we're going to
Hmm.
get Boba Fett back in the show, which supposedly we're supposed to see Boba back in this season of Mando.
Hmm.
Maybe get some Ahsoka again, I would think, since her show is going to be coming out sometime this year as well. I, I don't know. I'm excited, but I'm more curious as to where things are
Hmm.
going to be going here in the future.
Likewise, and I think we kind of talked about something interesting last time. So like 2 years ago, is how what I wanted from the Book of Boba Fett is maybe for it to be more like another chapter of the Mandalorian. I kind of wanted it to still have that same. I don't know if aesthetic is the right word. That same feeling, so that you could like call it the Mandalorian, but it just shifts focus from, Jin or Din to like Boba Fett maybe for a season. But I feel like they wanted the Book of Boba Fett to be something entirely different, which is still good. But I don't know. I'm very curious if they're going to kind of keep the space westernish feel, even if they change protagonists. Like you're saying.
Yeah, because I mean, with this show, since I guess now we can start actually getting into talking about the show. I mean, man, when we ended season 2, we got that little after credit scene. We got Boba and Fennec going into Jabba's palace with Bib Fortuna sitting there on his throne, killing him, taking
Mm-hmm.
the throne, him becoming the new, I guess, I forgot what he is. Daimo, I think is what it's considered or called.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, Daimyo or something like that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, like, just that ending, like, just the way that ended, and then we got Book of Boba Fett coming December 2021. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, man, you know me. Like, when we started getting ready for this show, I still stand by my opinion on this. Even though I do like the character a lot more, I do personally still think Boba Fett is easily the most overrated character in all Star Wars. And I mean, I wasn't excited
Yep.
at all when I heard he was going to be in season 2. But then season 2 came out, and the way they handled Boba Fett in season 2 was great. Like, to me, that is what I want out of the character.
I agree with that. I mean, once again, having not seen that character for so long, so that they kind of write him back into Star Wars canon was another complete left field, right? Because it kind of become like, the timeline of the Mandalorian is kind of like was shaky at times. So like, where does this really take place? And it's like, oh yeah, I guess Luke is there. Oh yeah, I guess Boba Fett is involved. Oh yeah, I guess Ahsoka, because they're tying so many characters into it. That seeing Boba Fett return was like, oh, they're committing to this. Not just having it be its own little isolated thing.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, to me, the way they handled Boba in...
Other than that, I think that...
Oh. Go ahead, Andy.
Oh, no, nothing major. I was just saying that, yeah, I think that... I think I'm repeating myself. I was saying that, yeah, I think including Boba Fett, Ahsoka, and Luke was really just a clear and definitive stance that they want a full send on the Mandalorian being like crucial or critical to Star Wars lore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. So, I mean, obviously now, let's also get into talking about our actual overall thoughts on the Book of Boba Fett. So I want to actually start off with you.
We might differ here, but I'm very interested.
Maybe, yeah. But I'll have you start off, give your overall thoughts on what you thought about the show.
I'm trying to be careful with how I word this. I guess I wasn't the biggest fan at times, of the Book of Boba Fett. Just, I think, coming off the hype of the Mandalorian and what I expected to see of the character, and seeing, like, I feel like the Boba Fett we got in the Book of Mandalorian, in Mandalorian, was a little different than what we got in the Book of Boba Fett. Because, you have him, he comes out guns blazing, swinging his mace, and, like, it's just, like, wanting his armor back. And then I feel like we kind of see him kind of, in his older, weary state throughout the Book of Boba Fett. And not being, he doesn't have, like, the kind of high energy combatant, like, he didn't feel like as much of a combatant as he was in those final few episodes of The Mandalorian.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would definitely
my initial
agree
takeaway.
with that. Oh, okay. Yeah, I agree with that, definitely. I definitely think that the Boba we get in this show is definitely very much removed from what we got in Mando. Definitely. Like, this one is more like making jokes. He's more, laid back. He's kind of trusting people more, and you don't think that kind of things when you think about Boba Fett. He's more of a take action, ask questions later kind of a guy that I personally think, from what I've seen from the character.
Same, right? Or, I think it's just you've got him, he's a mercenary, he's a Mandalorian. So I definitely want to see the same thing. And thank you, Star Wars Sith. I 100% agree. And I think I've talked to people about it, and I think it's like kind of a relatively universal consensus that everyone prefers the Boba we got in Mando and the OG trilogy, and the OG movies to the Book of Boba.
Yeah, like I said, they're almost like polar opposite of each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that also worries me for like when I'm hearing about him potentially being involved in season 3. It's kind of like a back and forth of like character development, right? Like, are you using this kind of like different personality, like as like character development, and that he doesn't just have to be a warrior, he has to actually think about stuff, maybe be more diplomatic, which is fine. If it's not for me, it's fine. Or are we gonna like just snap back to what we saw at the end of Mandalorian season 2, which then just I don't know, then that just I feel like confuses the heck out of what they want to do with the character.
Yeah, I definitely can see that, especially. So, I mean, for me, I thought overall it wasn't a fantastic show by any means, but obviously there are very obvious problems with the show.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought overall it was solid. I could
Mm-hmm.
probably sit down and I could watch the season again. But at the same time, I think I would rather watch, obviously The Mandalorian or Obi-Wan or anything like that than rushing to see Boba Fett, because whether or not we get a season 2 of Book of Boba Fett, I'm sure that's kind of up in the air the way that
Yeah.
this was handled around, but I don't know. I mean, I'd be fine if they go back to the way Boba needs to be.
Mm-hmm.
Just not this goofy character who's, making all these jokes and stuff, and because that was not Boba Fett. That was just Tamora Morrison being Tamora Morrison.
Yeah, which once again it doesn't have to be a bad thing. I prefer, I guess, a little bit more of a slope in or easing into that character development. Like for him to be like, I don't know, a little bit more facetious, jokey, whatever you want to call it. But I think another problem. Here's one of my biggest concerns or worries with like the Book of Boba Fett and Obi-Wan, right? So hot takes incoming is both of those shows really depended, or like got a lot of their foundation or a lot of their popularity from the teasing of there being another character in their show. Like for Obi-Wan, you had Darth Vader. Everyone loved seeing Darth Vader on screen. And he was terrifying. It was awesome, but it's like, well, am I watching this for Obi-Wan or am I watching it for Darth Vader? And then Book of Boba Fett. Am I watching this for Boba or am I watching this for Mando? It kind of like worries me when some of these shows start becoming more about their cameos than about being like kind of self-contained seasons or shows, standalones. There we go.
I mean, I can agree with that. I mean, that's honestly kind of, we talked about it a little bit earlier. I mean, you even brought up, phase 4 of MCU. I mean, for a lot of people, that's basically all it was, because, you had the two Peters, you had, oh my Lord, why am I spacing? You had Matt Murdock. There, that's who I'm thinking of.
I mean, it is what it is. It is what it is. I'm trying to think of more examples, but I think the biggest one is like, let's compare like Spider-Man No Way Home to to She-Hulk, right? Is Spider-Man No Way Home? You have all these cameos, and they're fun, they're awesome. They actually play into the story strongly. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like they're actually part of the plot. And when like Matt Murdock, Daredevil appearing in No Way Home is like, oh, whoa, I didn't think about that. But also, he's a lawyer, so this makes sense. As opposed to him being in She-Hulk, and doing the walk of shame, after sharing a bed with her, we'll say. So, then it's kind of like a one-off joke, but it's still like what people are kind of watching the show for. not so much because they're watching it for She-Hulk.
Yeah, I mean that's a pretty good example there. I mean, that, I didn't really want to get into it too early, but I know for a lot of people that is their biggest criticism of this show, of how Boba isn't even like the main character in his own show.
Yeah, that stings. That stings to hear, because I mean it's true. You know, as people watch it, they're not really watching it for Boba. And a Star Wars Sith says Matt Murdock was the best part of She-Hulk role, and that's exactly the problem. Is everyone on the internet was talking about how like screenshots got leaked of Daredevil in his like kind of comic accurate yellow costume. They were like, "Oh man, I can't wait for Daredevil to be it." And they keep watching, and it's like, "Hey, when does Daredevil get here?" And it's like, man, you should not be watching a show to like wait for a character that is not the main character.
Right. Because, I mean, it's unfortunate with this show because basically chapters 17 and 18 is what I'm calling them that we got of The Mandalorian in Book of Boba Fett were probably two of the best episodes of this freaking show.
Yep.
Like, it's sad, you know, how, again, you know, Boba is not even the main character, and then we literally get 2 full episodes of The Mandalorian within this show. And, I mean, I'll even say it too, you know, don't get me wrong. I loved them episodes. I loved seeing Mando come back, do his thing. I got a nice, good fill of Mando before we actually get back to him and his show. But at the same time, though, we got kind of robbed to a degree of getting that reunion between him and Grogu in season 3. Now we got that in Book of Boba. Kind of sad, in my opinion.
I feel like that's also a wasted opportunity. And Star Wars, Boba was robbed of 2 episodes. 100% agree. Like, I mean, like Star Wars Sith, you and Austin have good. I mean, for me, personal opinion, y'all have great takes. Where it just became the Mandalorian at the end, and that's not a good closer for a standalone series.
Yeah, I mean, like, Boba had his time to shine a little bit in that last episode. I mean, especially coming in riding a Rancor all over freaking Mos Eisley. Like, that was cool. That was badass.
Yeah,
but,
right?
But at the same time, again, you know, Mando's also there. You're more curious of what's going on with Mando because Boba takes out a couple of guys and then he just takes off.
Yep.
And you're like, well, where did he go? So now you got Mando there pinned down, fighting off against the Pikes. And I don't know. Like, so many things in this show were so good, but they're good because of Mando. Like, it's sad because, like, I think it was episode. I want to say it was episode 6 or maybe because he went back to Mos Eisley because he got his ship all made from that Naboo starfighter that he got from whatever her name is. I can't even think of what her name is either. The junk lady.
Yeah, I know who you're. Yeah, Grogu. I'm blanking, but I know who you're talking about.
Amy Sedaris. That's the actress's name. That's her name. But like, again, why take it away from Boba? Like, I was excited to see this show because of, again, the way they handled Boba last season.
Well, I think there's also this. I'm trying to think of the best way to word it, but there's this problem with fans kind of not knowing what they want or expect, and then producers or studios not knowing how to handle or what to do with the character. like I'm gonna like I'll throw it back to so right now in Spider-Man comics I am not reading them and everyone's like turning left or right from Spider-Man comics because the modern Spider-Man run he's literally like begging one of his villains Tombstone to spare his life. He is apparently divorced from Mary Jane again. He's stolen from the Fantastic Four and has kind of been kicked out of that familial unit. And then he's now working for Norman Osborn, you know, the Green Goblin. So this is a case of like people will always want Spider-Man comics, right? But then the writers are literally dropping the ball. Creators are dropping the ball of what to do with that character. So people, wow. So people are turning away. So then then it becomes it's like, well, do we actually need Spider-Man comics if this is what you're going to do with the character? So when you have like and Boba Fett, it's like, do we actually need this media? Like, how does this actually build into the grander Star Wars lore?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you even worded it, best earlier. I mean, a lot of people wanted to see the Obi-Wan show for Darth Vader.
Mm-hmm.
People wanted to watch Book of Boba Fett for Mando. So, to me, if we do get a season 2 of Book of Boba Fett, where is that going to lead? Like, are we going to get more Mando episodes? I mean, heck, even Star Wars Sith worded it here perfectly at the end. Boba better have his own episodes in Mando season 3. I actually don't mind that because
No, I agree, 100%. Like, take the power back. Like, give our boy some time to shine.
yeah, I mean, again, like I like that we're getting Tamora Morrison in this role of Boba Fett because it's the first time Boba Fett has been the center of a specific story
Mm-hmm.
compared to the original trilogy where he was just a background character who was chasing after Han and the Millennium Falcon and all that.
Yeah, man, I don't know. It also just feels to me like some of these things don't need to be full-fledged series, or they don't need to be 6 to 8 episodes, 6 to 12 episodes or whatever. Because when the Obi-Wan standalone was talked about years back, it was supposed to be a movie.
Yep.
Like Obi-Wan was supposed to have a standalone movie. And I feel like that impacts the Star Wars lore in a great way. Is because it's short and sweet. Like you introduce characters like young Padme and young Vader. It's perfect length for that.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's also another problem with the Obi-Wan show. I think is bringing in Leia into that, but I have more minor nitpicks with the Obi-Wan show than I do with the Book of Boba Fett show. Even though I know for a lot of people, they did not like the Obi-Wan show. So I'm in a very rare camp of people.
I also said Padme, not Leia. I meant Leia. Thank you for catching that. But
oh yes,
yeah, I don't know. It just kind of feels like non-essential watching, which is kind of where I'm at with the Bad Batch as well. As much as I hate to say that, is like Star Wars Clone Wars. Clone Wars has a huge amount of impact, like on the events of Boba Fett, But I mean, not Boba Fett, Mandalorian, right? But yeah, I mean, Obi-Wan, even like Andor, even though Andor was good, at least it's about a character we haven't really seen or explored before, so that one like makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's more of I don't want to say secondary character for him because I mean I would agree with you. I mean he's a lesser known character than these bigger names that we're getting.
Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, because it's also like it's fresher. You know what I mean? Is Rogue One came out within the past decade? Wow, I'm getting old. But within the past decade, so them turning around an Andor series, it's like okay, this makes sense. It's still kind of like it's still fresh. It's not like making series about characters from the prequels that kind of don't need to be made. I know, hot take.
I mean, yeah. I can agree and disagree. I mean, obviously so many people they've wanted to see, Ewan McGregor come back to play Obi-Wan because we want to see, what he did between the events of, Revenge of the Sith all the way up to A New Hope. And I mean, to a degree, I like what we got, but I definitely would have done it differently than what they did.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. I'll backpedal on what I was saying is that feels like there's enough of a time lapse between the prequels and the original trilogy that filling that in with like standalones actually does make sense. So I agree with that.
And we got Star Wars Sith again. We need more Qui-Gon Jinn. I mean, I could not agree anymore. I could say I like what we got in Tales of the Jedi. I thought that was very well handled, like especially getting more into Count Dooku's perspective of why he turned to the dark side and all that stuff.
Yep. Well, I think that actually opens up a in Kenobi.
In Kenobi, yes,
yeah,
I agree. Okay, I agree 100% there.
But I think that also you brought up something about like kind of Count Dooku, right? What I would like to see is more. I would love to see some standalones based around Sith characters or Sith lore. I know that's like a weird take, but we're kind of getting to this point in culture where it's getting, I don't know, popular, but it's possible to make movies about anti-heroes and villains, right? You got Suicide Squad, you've got Black Adam, it's possible. I think that like some Sith Lord series, or even just would be nice to see.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and it looks like our guest is finally here. We got Travis here.
Hey, howdy,
totally
Travis,
unprepared. Oh, geez. How are we doing, guys?
Good.
Good. Sorry
we
for the
are
delay.
doing well.
So, Travis, I guess since you're finally here, so we kind of gave our just initial little thoughts on the Book of Boba Fett. We're kind of getting into like what actually happens in the show, but before we do that, obviously, since you are the guest today, I want to just get your thoughts. What were your thoughts overall of the Book of Boba Fett as a show?
I don't know. I definitely liked it. I guess more or less anybody else, my taste on shows and movies in general. I definitely like stuff that's action packed. And it showed a side of Boba Fett that I don't think I've ever seen before. So that was definitely nice. And I was kind of trying to watch the live stream on the way home, and Andy kind of believe touched on almost like a almost like a Western kind of feel. I definitely got that from both kind of on the Mando side and especially early on Mando, that first season, and then Book of Boba Fett as well.
I think, yeah, when you put it like that, it's kind of cool how season 1 Mando is more of a space Western, and then it kind of turns more space opera in season 2. So I don't know. I like that expanded scope. Oh, Star Wars Sith says the Joker movie was amazing too. Kind of talking about villain movies, and I don't know. So, like, correct me if I'm wrong. Sith are kind of like more about passion and actual emotions, right? Jedi are kind of more like legalistic and like controlled. Yeah, what's
Star Wars Sith. I might need you to help me out with this because you're definitely, from what I've seen from your stuff, you're definitely more the Sith guy of it all. So I might need your help here for a minute, man. So we will get that answer here momentarily.
I say that because when he talks about the Joker movie, right? Like Joker is clearly the worst Batman, not worse in a bad way, but like, like one of the most evil Batman villains, right? Mm-hmm. But you watch the movie and you're like, oh, this guy's kind of going through it. Or, man, looks like society was the real Joker and we failed this poor man. And then you're like, wait, no, he literally shot people on a train. He's probably actually a bad guy.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, here we go.
I would say more deception and greed for Sith. They want power and control by any means. Okay. I didn't really know how to word it, unfortunately. And hate. Let the hate flow.
And hate. Let the hate flow. Oh, that's awesome.
So I guess too, while we're also
but that's
still.
I mean, to me.
Oh, go ahead, Andy. Sorry.
Oh no, you're good. You're good. I'm just gonna ramble.
Ramble away, buddy.
All right, we'll see. Yeah, I feel like when you look at movies like Joker, it's a perfect example of how you can humanize, right? You can humanize and take the perspective of a villain, arguably, like a monster, right? And you can actually see how they became who they are. Like when we watch series like Obi-Wan, it's not bad, right? But we already know who that character is and who he stands for and what he stands for, right? Whereas with the Sith series, you kind of have to actually see the progression to the point where they kill their own master to become Sith Lord or whatnot. There's like kind of an end goal to how they get to a certain, like a certain rank or mastery. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. That's my take.
Okay, fair enough. So I guess before we get into more of our little discussion here, I guess the next question for you, Travis, how did you personally feel about there basically being 2 episodes of The Mandalorian in the show compared to the show obviously supposed to be about Boba Fett?
That's an interesting question. I guess I didn't mind I guess I'd almost borderline call it a crossover, kind of between the two. I don't know. It's hard. I guess I didn't really mind it. I know obviously people are gonna have 2 different sides of the coin, but I think it was terrible. It'd have been nice if they would have definitely expanded more in the Book of Boba Fett. I think that was one of the things I think you and I talked about a little bit. Is I wish there'd have been more episodes, a little bit more time spent with it. So hopefully that will be the case. I think. Quote me if I'm incorrect on this, but I thought you said there was a second season of Boba Fett coming. Did I hear that correctly when I was on my home?
There's talks of there's supposed to be another season, possibly. And it hasn't been confirmed yet. I would assume we might hear something here in about a month or so when Star Wars Celebration happens.
Okay.
So, I guess let's get into talking about the things that we actually did like about the show. And I guess for me personally, I say, obviously besides the obvious, the 2 full episodes of Mandalorian we got in the show. My favorite thing, I honestly would have to say, was the flashbacks we got with Boba, with him living with the Tuskens, kind of being a part of their society and stuff. And also, just how Boba lived after he escaped from the Sarlacc pit. That to me was probably the thing they did the best. And again, on the negative side, though, I wish we could have got more of that. I wish we could have seen more of the things that Boba actually did. We could have spent more time with the Tuskens, because that's definitely the thing I think that Mando has done very well as a show, and I guess Book of Boba Fett now too, is giving the spotlight to these kind of almost side characters, however you want to word it, because these guys are just labeled to be evil, When you first see them in Episode 4, A New Hope, they attack Luke, knock him out. Obviously, of course, you see them later on in episode 2, Attack of the Clones, where they take Anakin's mother, and you get the infamous scene of Anakin slaughtering the entire race there, basically. So, I that's the thing I like about, again, this show and Mando, is how they've handled the Tusken Raiders. Because, I'm more interested now to see how they are just as a culture, kind of see more of what they do besides the things we've already seen. Like, how do they actually communicate? Are they actually are they aliens? Are they just literally people who just live out in the desert? Kind of like, I can't think of what they're called. The people who live in the desert from Dune. I can't think of what they're called at the top of my head.
Fremen.
Yeah, the Fremen. There we go. Yeah.
Yeah.
If they're kind of like the Fremen, or like what exactly they are. Like that's more what I want to see. But for me, I enjoyed the flashback stuff. That was probably my favorite part of the entire show.
Can we, speaking of the flashback, should we talk about the practical effects for the Sarlacc pit? Like, good night. That was felt like a horror, like a body horror movie partially. Like,
it's like watching The Thing.
That was, yeah. I know it's like such a small thing to point out, but I know like that was a dime. That was a gem for me. Is seeing him have to fight his way out or get out of that situation. I don't know. That was beautiful.
Yeah, I definitely enjoyed that as well. So how about you, Travis? What was your biggest positive for the Book of Boba Fett?
I'd almost have to piggyback off of what you said, Austin. I'm still, I will say, fairly new to Star Wars, and I've been getting into it a little bit more over the years, but I would still call myself fairly new to it. So getting all the backstory definitely made me, I guess, more appreciative of it, A, and then B, to learn more. Because if we wouldn't have had the backstory, I wouldn't have known how Boba Fett got from, with the Tuskens to where he is now, without that backstory. So definitely, I would definitely say I enjoyed that quite a bit.
Okay. And how about you, Andy?
I know I'm kind of dogging on the show, right, for finishing with some Mandalorian episodes, but honestly, as someone who is not well versed in a lot of Star Wars lore, learning a little bit more about the Darksaber was cool to me, right? Is learning that Din is kind of like internally struggling, with the weight of the Darksaber or the weight of what it means to be, potentially the leader of the Mandalorians. Mm-hmm. So I use that to say I like this parallel, right? I like this parallel between Mando, and then with Boba, right? How Boba took power and immediately started acting with it, and then how Din has always acted kind of standalone, like a free agent, and is now having to accept the responsibility he's being called to undertake.
Mm-hmm. I guess I didn't even think about something like that, like how they're almost basically like polar opposites of that point again too, because I'm wondering if that's going to tie in very heavily into this upcoming season, if because obviously we know I would assume there's eventually going to be a fight between Din and Bo-Katan. I think that's just inevitable at this point, but because obviously last season he didn't know anything about the Darksaber. He just beat. Oh, I can't think of who it is. Oh my God,
Moff Gideon.
Well, yeah. He just beat Moff Gideon. He just walks out with the Darksaber, and Bo's just looking at him like, "What are you doing?" And he's just like, "What?"
That was such a good.
Hey, that's the Darksaber. He's like, "Okay, well, here you go." No, it has to be one in fight. Okay, here, I yield. Take it. No. She's just so salty and bitter about it. is she gonna be the villain? Is she gonna be like
Well,
what's it
actually, so
called?
that's also,
Which
I think,
what's it called between like a hero
so
and a villain kind of thing,
like an
Andy? What's
oh, antagonist, antagonist or anti-hero.
yeah, yeah. Is that what she's gonna more be in this season?
Yeah, I think it's like she could potentially be more of an potential antagonist where she's not actively evil, but she definitely has her own agenda.
Mm-hmm.
Like she's not trying to kill Mando, but she definitely wants to save her. I don't know. Travis, what are you thinking, dude? Because I'm curious now, Austin.
I was kind of curious about that. You see, uh, and I can't remember for the life of me, um, but you definitely see that almost that she would have the potential for that side agenda. Just
Mm-hmm.
with some of the actions she has, so I definitely agree with that. That definitely could happen. I That's where I'm at with it. I don't know. It would be impressed. I'd be impressed to see either way, But I definitely think that if they wanted to make that happen, it would be very easy, and it would work.
I think that's also kind of an interesting, I guess, another interesting parallel or comparison is that when we first meet Bo-Katan in the series, right, in The Mandalorian, she's kind of grilling. She's grilling, Mandalorian for, wearing his helmet or for following rules of this, what he figures out is like a Mandalorian cult, pretty much, right? Then at the end of the series, we realize that she's kind of hypocritical because there's this lore behind the Darksaber that Mando doesn't care about, but is like really crucial and important to her.
So I know that ties in very heavily with the way she is in Clone Wars and even in Rebels too, because the last time you see her is in Rebels before we see her in Mando season 2, but at
Mm-hmm.
the end of that, she is holding the Darksaber. She is, the one ruling Mandalore. So
Mm-hmm.
I obviously I would think she's obviously going to be very salty because the different creeds that they both live by, where it's disgraceful for Mando to be wearing his helmet all the time, and obviously she doesn't follow those rules because there's different perspectives of how a Mandalorian actually acts.
I mean, I think so. In terms of her becoming a villain, I don't know if like you're saying, I don't know if villain is the right term, but I think there would be like kind of a moral conflict between the two, right? And I'm kind of more excited for that. I don't necessarily want to fight between them, but like I think like ideologies, I would love to see them like contest and discuss more in depth.
I would agree with that definitely. So I want to get your guys' thoughts on the little surprise we got in one of the later episodes. That is a specific bounty hunter who made his on-screen live action debut. And for some of you who might not know, Travis, obviously, I know you're kind of a little, out of the touch with Star Wars in that case, but we got live action Cad Bane in The
Mm-hmm.
Mandalorian. So, what was your guys' thoughts on Cad Bane? I guess
You
whoever
want to go
wants to
first,
start.
Travis?
For whatever reason, I'm drawing a huge blank. I had to look it up. I was like, I don't know who that is. I'm drawing a huge blank on where that came in. So I'm gonna have to pass on this one. Let me look. Let me figure this out here.
Okay.
I
Okay.
I know, man. I felt let down. I'm gonna be honest. I felt like it was kind of just a cameo for the sake of a cameo. You know what I mean? And it's a super small nitpick. I didn't really like his prosthetics, or whatever you want to call it. I felt like his costume didn't really feel like very alienish to me. It just felt like kind of just he was like wearing props. So I don't know. I didn't really like the makeup design for that. Once again, that's a personal grievance, but after like kind of watching him in different series and especially even seeing him used well recently in Bad Batch, right? Like even up till now, it feels like it's kind of a little like letdown seeing him from Bad Batch just being very cold, calculating, and chasing, like giving genetically altered stormtroopers a run for their money versus what we got here.
See, as somebody who's not like super invested in the Clone Wars show, I would still say Cad Bane is probably easily one of the best things to come out of Clone Wars and Bad Batch. So I thought seeing him was pretty cool. I just like my grievances with Boba, they could have handled him a lot better because I'm more curious of the way they ended things with him. Is he actually dead? Is he in a bacta tank somewhere? Is he going to be like a prisoner? Is he going to turn like
Yep.
God, what am I trying to say here? Is he going to be like Boba? Is he going to be more like, go off on his own, do his own thing, maybe not be specifically like a bounty hunter?
Yeah, and Star Wars Sith puts it well in that like I loved it. I just hope that it's not because he's dead, so that would be a waste of an epic bounty hunter. And I think that's my grievance. Exactly your point. Star Wars Sith is I'm a little leery of like having cameos of really awesome characters if they're just gonna like be put on ice, so to speak. You know what I mean? Which is kind of what we have here. We don't know if he's alive. We don't know if he's dead. He's just kind of holstered until they know what to do with him or need another cameo. So my personal fear is if this is what we get with Thrawn when we actually have him presumably introduced in the Ahsoka series.
Mm-hmm. So, Travis, do you have an answer for us now?
Yeah, I had to look it up. I'm sorry. For the life of me, I could not remember who that was. Gosh, I was almost taken back by that. I'm trying to recall the exact episode. I'm for life, I'm forgetting what episode it is. But yeah, I was definitely I was taken back because I wasn't expecting that. It almost gives it more of that again, that kind of like Western feel to me, just by looking at his presence. But yeah, until you said who it was, I had no idea. I couldn't remember life of me. It seemed like he was in there almost too short. I can't remember if it was 1, 2, maybe 1 or 2 episodes, if that. And I think it was almost too short because I would have liked to have seen more of that, to be completely honest.
If you want a good amount of Cad Bane, I would just suggest going to watch the Clone Wars because it's pretty sad. He can go toe to toe with a Jedi, like he does that in handfuls of episodes.
Yeah. But that also kind of like based. Oh, sorry, Travis, you were saying?
As I say, that's the one of the few things I haven't watched yet. Is I haven't been able to watch the Clone Wars or Bad Batch yet. That's on my to-do list. And get caught up a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got. Oh, they better not waste Thrawn. That would be terrible. But it's Filoni doing the Ahsoka show. I trust him to handle Thrawn well. Heard. Agreed. 100%. I think anything that Favreau and Filoni are involved with is gold for the most part at this point, or gold standard for like the Star Wars series we're getting on Disney Plus.
Yeah, they definitely are the future of the show, or of, I guess, Star Wars in general, because don't know if I heard right either. There's even possible talks of them doing a movie or being involved in one of the movies coming up here, which obviously for a lot of people, I think would be a good thing.
They need to just capitalize. They just need to strike while the iron's hot. I prefer Disney starts pouring more into. I prefer Disney takes its time with Marvel and Star Wars properties and pushes out more quality content. So like I don't know if that means they got to pull people from Marvel stuff and put them on like Star Wars stuff or whatever. But it's like, we're getting plenty of Star Wars shows, but I would not mind seeing a new Star Wars movie, right? Like something that is like just really easily digestible, not drawn out too long. That's what I want.
Mm-hmm. That's also another thing we're supposed to be getting at Star Wars Celebration. They're going to finally tell us what the next movie is supposed to be. So,
let's go.
Yeah, I'm curious as to what it's going to be.
I think that Mando is going to be in the next movie. I don't know if it's going to be about him, but I feel like just Pedro Pascal's breaking his back, carrying the Star Wars universe right now. So I feel like if they make a new movie, they're going to when they make a new movie, they're going to cameo him or involve him somehow.
Oh, dude, Pedro Pascal's just proving he's one of the best dads in television. Him as Mando has been awesome. I've been watching The Last of Us. He's awesome in that. He plays a great Joel Miller, in my opinion.
I did not see that one coming. Like, honestly, not in a bad way, but I was like really shaky on that casting because I was like, not that he would do a bad job. I was just like, wow, that's kind of out of left field. I mean, he's a great actor, but just the guy's crushing it. That's all I got to say. Pedro's crushing it right now, and I hope we get more of him.
Mm-hmm. So one other thing I want to get your guys' opinion on in the Boba Fett show. What did you guys think about them, the little biker gang, the modified, I don't know what you want to call them, just the modified biker gang who is in the show?
I mean, yeah, Travis, what do you think? I'll let you, I'm going to keep rambling. I'll let you take it.
All right. I need a quick reminder. Is that during the whole Tusken Raider thing? Is that what we're talking about? Or are you talking about when he was actually at the town?
When they were in the town, Star Wars Sith wrote it on here. The Vespa gang. The people with the very colorful speeder bikes. Or the Power Rangers, as
my
some people call
soul.
them.
Well, I think Star Wars Sith definitely has a very good opinion over there. It was definitely kind of weird to me to see that incorporated. But again, like I said a million times, it's still rather new, so I'm sure there's some things that I've missed. But I thought it was kind of weird, but also interesting that they would, merge that, knowing that there's all kinds of different, motorcycle clubs go, in the real world. But to see that in Star Wars was definitely interesting. That's about all I can say about it. Definitely, it was just interesting in the way that they incorporated it.
I know, man. It feels like a toy. It feels like a toy grab when they're all colorful and stuff. I know that sounds weird, but like you said, Power Rangers, right? It's like I think with Boba, with him sitting on the throne at the end of Mando season 2, I was hoping for a little bit maybe socio-political Star Wars, kind of like what they were wanting to do with the prequel series, but with Boba having to not be so much of an action hero. But more of he's kind of more behind the scenes, actually making political decisions. Yeah, we get a little bit of that. But you don't necessarily need colorful biker gangs to do that.
Well, it's more weird, too, seeing those kind of bikes, but then, you look all over Mos Eisley because, you got the sand and the heat and, all the other vehicles you see all over. They're all rusted up or caked over with sand and all that, and then you just get these colorful, brand new bikes just strolling through the town.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Man, that was a good question. That was a good. That was a funny question. I love that.
yes. I just wanted everybody's take on it because, I mean, character-wise, they were interesting, but then just kind of seeing how they were handled, I was just kind of like, oh, well, okay. I would definitely say, though,
Yeah, it was another misfire for the show for me.
Yeah. And Star Wars Sith, great stream, guys. I'm out for now. All right, man. We'll see you at another time.
Cheers. Much love.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, no. I think the show had more misfires for me than I wanted. But, you know, I mean, it's still Star Wars, so it wasn't bad. It was just not great.
Yeah, I could agree with that statement for sure. I also want to get your guys' thoughts, though, on the two main things I'm curious about. The first one is having Jabba the Hutt's cousins appear on this show.
No. I feel like there's too much. It feels like they tried to have so much going on, and then to have Jabba the Hutt's cousin, it feels like they were pulling out all the stops just to inject cameo after cameo after cameo into the show without it feeling like, I know, like, okay, Travis, please weigh in because I'm just going to go off the handle here.
You know, I'm kind of honestly with you on that one. I remember the scene. Now I'm thinking about it. You know, at first didn't understand the purpose of it. You know, there are definitely other ways they could have handled that. And and again, Star Wars noob over here. You know, I don't think I recall seeing them in a long time, but I don't think it was needed. I think that they could have done it just as well without them, to be completely honest.
Yeah, CGI wise, they looked terrible. Like, terrible. Like it just reminds me of the special edition of A New Hope when Han is talking to Jabba, just how god awful and terrible that CGI is. Oh, thank you.
Yeah, just I know it. But what I was going to say is like, yeah, with Mando, the references and the cameos and everything felt earned. You know what I mean? Like it felt like it made sense. You have the Darksaber at the end of season 1, and it's like, oh crap, like we're full sending. You know, like we are cutting into deep lore or quote unquote deeper lore. And it's like, and we're literally connecting the animated shows we are connecting to the actual canon, which is wild and awesome.
Yes.
I mean, but then it's like, oh, why are we looking for Ahsoka? Oh, because Grogu needs to be trained by a Jedi. You know, it's like Ahsoka can't train him, so she's sending us to find a Jedi who can train him. Then we get Death Troopers. Then we get Boba. You know, then we get Luke. It all feels like it flowed and had good reasons for it.
Yeah, the cameos in Mando definitely. It was more part of the story as to why they were a part of the show.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely agree with that.
And the next character I want to bring up, because I actually thought he was pretty cool. I thought he was handled well for the most part, but that was the other bounty hunter that was in the show, the Black Wookiee, Black Chrysanthemum. Definitely want to hear your guys' thoughts on that character for sure, because to my knowledge, he was only in the comics from what I remember. And then the fact that they brought him to live action too, I definitely liked the look. I liked his ferocity and the way that he was presented in the Boba Fett show.
Mm-hmm. I mean, one, I'm down for seeing more Wookiees, but two, that's the kind of stuff I was hoping for with the Book of Boba, was kind of like deep cut references and an opportunity to kind of introduce or confirm what Star Wars legacy canon was. I mean, what Star Wars legacy stuff was actually going to be considered canon. Because with the new trilogy, with the latest trilogy, it kind of threw everything out the window and like disrupted a lot of the Star Wars expanded universe stuff. So I liked it, in short.
Oh, okay, fair enough. Travis?
Again, having to look this up. But no, my iPad's like tripping. But no, I like how he was represented. It definitely feels more of a badass, excuse my language, than like Chewie would be, but I definitely enjoyed it. I think that again, I don't think I've seen him before outside of just the Book of Boba Fett, but I definitely liked just the way he was represented. I liked the fact that, and correct me if I'm wrong, that was the cousin's bounty hunter, right? That was sent to take out Boba. If I'm correct,
Yep.
if I'm right on that. Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah. So I definitely liked that. I was kind of reading again. I think it says in here that he was Jabba's best bounty hunter. So to see him do that was awesome.
Mhm.
Yeah, I definitely, like I said, I think that's one of the very few characters that were actually handled very well in the show.
Which I think is funny, and I think it's funny in contrast to like Cad Bane, right? It's almost like that character was handled the way we wanted to see Cad Bane handled, for me personally. So I still enjoyed it, and I like that they made like more out of a smaller character. But when you have bigger cameos, I was really hoping to get more mileage out of those as well.
Oh, I guess another question I have for you, Travis, we talked about it a little bit earlier, was do you feel that Mando and Grogu, their reunion in Book of Boba Fett, do you think that should have been earned more in the next season of Mando, or do you think that was handled well too in the show?
I'm torn with that, because I love seeing Grogu with Mando. I just love their connection they have, but at the same time, I almost thought it was almost too quick. Just the reunion. I kind of was expecting it to draw out quite a bit more, and it almost just seems like it just like at the snap of finger, drop of the hat, they were back together, which I'm fine with. But I definitely think that it could have been drug out a little bit longer and maybe saved it for season 3. It definitely would have been a lot more anticipated, had they just left it at the end of season 2 with him being with Luke and, learning the Jedi ways and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden, let there be something that happens that makes it so that, those that Grogu and Mando have to come back together, whether it's for a certain cause or something happens with Luke, whatever that may be. But if that would have been saved for season 3, it would have been a lot more of almost like a cliffhanger kind of, to hang over from season to season.
Because, I mean, now it feels like you almost literally have to watch. You watch the first 2 seasons of Mando, and then it's almost like you have to watch the Book of Boba Fett to get into season 3 of Mando. Because, I mean, like you said, they leave it with that emotional cliffhanger of like, oh, are these two ever going to get back together? And then all of a sudden you get into season 3 and they're already back together and all that. So it's like, I feel like we kind of got robbed, because I think I would rather have seen it in season 3, like halfway through the series, or even at the end of the series.
Yes. Well, I think like with them wanting to retake Mandalore, I think they could have done it pretty organically. I mean, one of my favorite characters, the Armorer, is oddly enough, the Armorer is coming back for season 3, which I'm really stoked on. I know that's such a weird thing. But I think him reconnecting with her, or them, I don't know anymore. But him reconnecting with the Armorer, and then maybe her pretty much expanding on, like, we need to reconnect you with your son, right? Like, he's a Mandalorian as well. He needs to be involved in this, like the retaking of our home. Like, I feel like that's also organic, because it's like, based on the way that Mandalorian sect works, Grogu's a Mandalorian, is like based on like how that operates.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think like we could have got like 3 episodes of just Mando, and then we could have caught back up with Grogu in like episode 4, episode 5, had him in this whole thing with Luke, have Ahsoka there, maybe not have Mando actually fly to the planet where Luke is training Grogu, just kind of be like, still give him that option, like, I don't know, maybe like figuratively say like episode 6 or something, like towards the end, have Luke sit there with Yoda's lightsaber, which I'm going to get into that here in a minute, because that's all something there with too. And then give him the little Beskar armor that he had made for him from the spear, which another thing I got to get into after that, because that's another thing that bothered me too. But but like that's how I think. I think not only would it just, I'm sure it's going to be a great season no matter what, but I just feel like we just kind of got robbed of having like that big emotional reunion between Grogu and Mando in season 3, because now we have it at the end of the Boba Fett show. Like, to me, it didn't make sense. It didn't really work for me all that much.
I mean, I'm just gonna say, yeah. I know, man. Yeah. Like, I agree across the board. I wanted something a little bit more emotionally impacting. I wanted to see more of Mando without Grogu, which honestly they could still do. You know what I mean? They could expand upon that in the starting episodes, and then kind of like, to kind of catch you up to where he was at before that. I don't know. It's possible, but I do wish we got to see that in the actual Mandalorian series, not just the Boba series.
Mm-hmm. And I guess since I already brought it up, the first thing I want to talk about, Yoda's lightsaber. How? First of all.
Oh, yeah.
I'm curious because in one of the Darth Vader comics, Palpatine's whatever he is, second in command guy, the guy with the blue horns and the I don't know what he is, but he literally holds up, because they start throwing the lightsabers into this big like pit of fire, and they literally hold up Yoda's lightsaber and literally throw it in there. So how do they have Yoda's lightsaber in this show? That bothers me a little bit, unless it's like an extra he had or something, maybe.
Yeah, he just keeps a spare lightsaber on him, burner lightsaber.
And then, I mean, like, it makes sense to a degree that Mando gives up the Beskar staff that he got from Ahsoka after beating, man, I don't even remember what she is again, but Bruce Lee's daughter or whatever she was. But like, I can kind of see why he got rid of it, because he used the spear to combat against Moff Gideon. God, I don't know why I keep drawing blanks on him, man.
Yeah. You're good.
Yeah. So, like, I guess I can kind of see, because, like, that's the weapon that helps save Grogu. So, like, he wants to kind of, in a way, like, give it back to him. But at the same time, though, man, like...
Oh, that's bullcrap.
Yeah, I love that spear. Like, it's like when we talked about it with last season when Mando's ship got destroyed. Like that
Yep.
crazy cool blaster rifle he had that literally would disintegrate people. Like
Yep.
that's gone. Well, I mean, don't get me wrong. It's cool he's got the dark saber, but I want to still see the things that make Mando Mando.
Yeah, and I mean, you got a spear of Beskar. One, hard to find, right? Two, it literally is lightsaber proof. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, like you said, it's great that you got the dark saber, but considering that thing's temperamental, apparently, is like maybe having a Beskar spear would not be a bad backup.
Yeah, exactly. Especially if he ends up getting beat by Bo. Like, come on.
I'm kind of right there with you guys, to be honest. Like, I was kind of upset about that. I definitely would have liked to stayed around.
Yeah, at least keep it for at least another season or two, and then be like, okay, whatever, take it. I don't want it no more. I guess that's just me.
Well, I think part of what has made the Mandalorian series so cool to me. No, I agree. I think what's made the Mandalorian series cool to me is seeing how he ups his arsenal along the way, right? Like at the start of the series, he's just got basic armor. Then he gets his helmet. Then he gets his sigil. He gets his clan sigil and fully decked out in Beskar. Then he gets the Beskar spear and the dark saber. I mean, just seeing him kind of level up over time has been and then now he's losing weapons. It just I don't know, it hits different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree. So I mean, honestly, I really don't have a whole lot more to say about the Book of Boba Fett.
Those are just my thoughts.
Okay. Yeah, don't have a lot more to say about the Book of Boba Fett, unfortunately, when it comes to us talking about it. Me, I guess we can give it a ranking, kind of like what we used to do with the episodes. I mean, as a show overall, I'd probably give it about a 6 out of 10. I don't know what happened to Andy.
That's right. I don't know. I guess I'm more partial to the Mandalorian, the Book of Boba Fett than I was to some of the Star Wars movies. I'd probably say about a 6.5, 7. Just because there are some things that I would have liked to have seen more, and some things that to me still didn't make a whole lot of sense. I know I had to rewatch it a couple different times because I know I missed a couple things. But yeah, there's just a lot of things that could have been handled a little bit better, and had they been handled better, we'd been obviously rating a little bit higher on the scale. But I would say probably about that 7 range for me.
Okay. Oh. Are you there, Andy? Can you hear us?
All right. Not sure if y'all can see or hear me. Sorry about that.
That's all right.
Can't tell if he can hear us or not. Hang on, I'll do this quick. Oh. Well, I think Andy might end up having to be gone for the rest of the episode. Yeah, okay.
I think he's having
computer
minor
issues.
technical difficulties.
Yeah, he kind of warned me a bit about this before we started. So, I guess just real quick before we log off here, because we're about hitting that time we were going to stop anyway. Any predictions or any anticipation, I guess, or speculation of what you think we're going to see or what you want to see in the show? Can you hear me?
Yeah. Okay. Wow.
Oh,
That's
okay.
weird, but I'm happy to be here.
Okay, I guess before we get into your
But
opinion, Travis, what's your Andy? I guess I should probably say who I'm talking to here. What is your rating for the Book of Boba Fett?
oh gosh. Okay. Well, trying not to incite too much animosity. I think I'm going to give it a 6. I think I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I gave it. Travis, since he's a little more partial to it, he gave it like a 6.5, 7 out of 10.
Yeah,
So we're right
I
around
think
the same
that
range.
overall, it's not even. Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I didn't go into it. I don't know how many people went into it with high hopes, but I do feel like it was, man, I hate to say disappointing, but it was not fully realized. I'll say it wasn't fully realized as I would have wished.
Yep. Now where did he go? Well, I guess I'm sure Travis will be back. There he is right there. So I guess now we can kind of get into our thoughts, speculations, or theories going into Mando season 3. So Travis, we'll start off with you again since I was kind of getting to you anyway. What's your like anticipation for season 3 of Mando coming out here in just 2 days?
There's a lot of things I'd like to see. I guess the one thing I'm definitely curious about is kind of how they continue the direction with Bo-Katan and the other Mandalorians that she's with. Also, kind of want to see, is this the last time that we're gonna? And I could be completely wrong. Is this the last time we're gonna see Luke in the Mandalorian? I was definitely taken back by that when when he showed up in season 2. That was probably like the highlight for me of that season. But is this the last time that we're going to see him? How are they going to? And I'm drawing a blank on her name. Is it Osaka? Osaka, is that correct? Is that how you say her name?
Ahsoka?
Ahsoka.
Ahsoka.
Are we gonna? Yeah. Are we gonna see her again? There's a lot of things that I guess I have more questions. On how this is gonna play out. Is Boba Fett going to play in this at all? We saw the crossover with the Mandalorian in the Book of Boba Fett. There's a lot of things that I'm just curious how they're going to play out. How are they going to go about, rebuilding, I can't think of what it is. The Mandalorian the way of life, how they're going to keep going towards that. Because I imagine at some way, shape, or form, that's what the goal seems to be anyway, is finding a way to rebuild that. So I'm just curious, a lot of curiosity. I'm definitely going in with an open mind. Austin knows this probably more than anybody, but my kids absolutely love Grogu, so I'm sure they're probably going to tag along for the ride for that. Yeah, I'm just excited to see where this goes. At first, when I first watched the first season the very first time, I told Austin I didn't like it. I honestly didn't care for it. It didn't jive to me. And then I went back and rewatched it, and I was like, wow, what the heck was I thinking? Like, this was actually really cool. And I ended up binging both the first 2 seasons, or season 1 and season 2, and then ended up binging the Book of Boba Fett pretty much right afterwards. So I'm just excited to see where things go. For me, I feel like I like the episodic version of Star Wars better than I like the movies. I have a hard time following with the movies since sometimes they jump kind of all over the place. It seems like the episodic stuff kind of has a clear direction anyway where they're going. So I'm just curious. I'm curious, excited, and just wanting to see what happens season 3.
Okay. And Andy.
Mhm. Man, I think I'm really interested to see the idea. Oh gosh, I hope I say that ideological conflict between Din's, between like Din, like Mandalorian's like way of life, that kind of sect, kind of like Travis is saying, and Bo-Katan's beliefs, especially because I want to see Mandalorian uh, Mandalorian in the spotlight as a leader, but I also want to see whether that's going to be him, kind of leading the army, but then ultimately giving control to Bo-Katan or someone else, or if we're going to see him take on like this kind of emperor role or kingly role of the Mandalorian Empire. Yeah. Other than that, I know I was kind of ragging on cameos a little bit, but I'm excited to see what cameos they have in store for us in this season. Yeah, we'll just have to see. I'm pretty much excited for it. I don't know. I'm an easy guy to please. I'm excited. I'm just excited we're getting more Mandalorian. But those are some of the highlights. Austin, what about you?
I definitely agree with both of you. I mean, I obviously I want to see Mandalorian live action. I want to see how they're gonna tie everything in. I want to see the thing I'm most curious about, and actually probably would say I'm more excited for, is getting all the other Mandalorians that we get to see in the trailers. I want to see kind of more where their headsets are, like where they are with their beliefs of the Mandalorians. If we're gonna get
Yeah.
literally like a full on, figuratively say, I don't know if it's gonna go that big, but like a big Mandalorian war where it's literally Mandalorians versus Mandalorians kind of thing. There's not much that I've saw in this season involving the Empire, so I want to see if like this starts to begin like the downfall or the desurgence, I guess we can say, of the Empire. If it's finally going to be like fully gone now.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, too, same thing with the cameos. I'm wondering if we're going to get Ahsoka in the show to get our lead up to her show coming up this upcoming, whenever it's going to be. I think it's like late spring, early summer, I think sometime. But I'm kind of think I'm with Travis on this one. I'm very more curious of what they're going to do with this season because, I mean, first season was pretty straightforward, like you worded it. It's like watching a space western. And then the second season, obviously, we worked our way to getting towards the Jedi that we were supposed to see. So, I mean, and this one's just kind of all a mystery. Like, they haven't showed us a whole lot. They've showed us a lot of Mandalorian action, a lot of different Mandalorians. So, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's probably the thing I'm just more curious about is just what they're going to do with the Mandalorians in this season.
And I have to go back to when we were talking about Bo-Katan earlier. I was like way off base with who I was thinking of, but I still think that I agree with kind of what we've all talked about. I definitely see that the battle of forces, if you will, on the way things have happened, the way things could happen. For whatever reason, I was thinking of Fennec Shand and Boba Fett, and how like those two, they work together, but I almost kind of see her having her separate ideals from his, and so that's where I was getting confused when we were talking about the first time. But still, I would say that um, what I had said earlier was pretty much the same. Definitely interesting. Going to be interesting to see how they handle that going forward. Whether it's he runs the army, she runs the whole empire. Their empire. The whole Mandalorian empire itself, or how that happens. But I definitely see there being a clash at some point with that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, you guys, I think that is going to do it for our return, I guess we will say, of the Talkalorian Live. Obviously, hopefully, our schedules will be good. So hopefully this Saturday we will get our first official Talkalorian Live talking about the first episode. I guess that more depends on Andy.
Oh, I think we'll be good for Saturday. I'm excited.
Yeah, we'll definitely. I'll probably watch the episode a handful of times because I want to really get deep into what's going to happen and all that.
Mm-hmm.
So, guys, again, if you weren't here at the beginning, as I pointed out to, we had last season, because I'm calling this Talkalorian Season 2. I'm calling this one. But last season, we had a third co-host of Ren. He unfortunately will not be able to join us this season. So we're hoping to get on a new co-host and even bring in some guests here and there. So hopefully going to be doing a little bit more with this upcoming season, make it a little bit bigger, a little bit more, I don't want to say grand because, it's just a podcast, but still. But hopefully getting, a couple of bigger podcasts. Maybe we can actually get a bunch of guests on and everybody kind of give their thoughts and opinions and things. So,
Heck yeah.
but yeah, just stay tuned, guys. We'll give you guys some updates and things if things don't work out for a certain day, but definitely a lot of excitement coming out for Mandalorian Season 2 coming out on Wednesday. So, guys, that is going to do it. Yes. So that is going to do it for our special return episode of the Talkalorian Live. I, of course, want to thank Andy for being able to come back for another season and doing this. And I also want to thank Travis for also being our first guest of the podcast. And yeah, stay tuned for some more Talkalorian Live. So with that being said, you guys, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and we'll see you in the next one.